The discovery. The summer heat pressed down on Mira's shoulders as she climbed over the fence marked with faded, "No trespassing" signs. At 16, she'd already mapped every interesting corner of Pinewood Valley, except for the abandoned limestone quarry that had been closed since before she was born. Local legends warned of unstable ground and dangerous sinkholes, but after 3 months of the same boring summer routine, Mira was desperate for adventure. She adjusted her backpack containing a flashlight, water bottle, and the sketchbook where she documented her explorations. The quarry itself was disappointing. Just a massive bowl carved into the earth, its terraced sides overgrown with weeds and young trees reclaiming the space. Mira took photos of some interesting rock formations, but found nothing worth the risk of sneaking in. As she prepared to leave, a glint of something metallic caught her eye from a crevice in the quarry wall. Curious, she approached and discovered it wasn't just a crevice, but a narrow passage. Someone had placed rusted metal bars across the entrance, but several had broken away, leaving a gap large enough for a slender teenager to slip through. 10 minutes, Mira promised herself, clicking on her flashlight. Just a quick look. The passage descended steeply, natural limestone giving way to worked stone that suggested the tunnel had been expanded by human hands long ago. The air grew cooler and damper, and soon Mira's footsteps splashed in shallow water. The tunnel continued downward until she was wading knee-deep in what felt like an underground river. She should have turned back then. Her parents would be furious if they knew where she was. But as she paused, considering her options, she heard a sound that froze her in place. A low, rumbling breath that echoed through the passage, followed by the unmistakable clink of heavy chains. Something was down here. Something alive. Something enormous. Fear warred with curiosity as Mira edged forward, each step deliberate in the deepening water. The tunnel widened suddenly into a vast cavern, and her flashlight beam seemed pathetically small in the darkness. Then she saw it, a massive shape on a raised stone platform that rose from the water like an island. At first, her mind couldn't process what she was seeing. The creature was at least 30 feet long, with iridescent scales in deepest blue-black that shimmered when her light touched them. Leathery wings were folded tight against its body, and heavy iron chains wrapped around its torso, neck, and legs, anchoring it to enormous metal spikes driven into the stone. A dragon. An actual dragon. Mira's flashlight trembled in her hand. The creature's eyes opened, swirling pools of amber that fixed on her with frightening intelligence. It lifted its massive head as far as the chains allowed, and Mira stumbled backward, splashing loudly in the water. But instead of the roar or stream of fire she expected, the dragon made a soft, almost whimpering sound. It was then that Mira noticed the wounds where the chains had rubbed scales away, leaving raw flesh exposed. The dragon wasn't a threat. It was a prisoner. "Who did this to you?" she whispered, her fear slowly giving way to horror at the creature's condition. The dragon's gaze shifted to something beside it, something Mira hadn't noticed before. Her flashlight revealed a small stone pedestal, and upon it rested an object that glowed with its own pale blue light, a crystalline sphere about the size of a basketball, covered in strange markings. As Mira waded closer, intrigued by the softly pulsing sphere, the dragon made an urgent noise, pulling against its chains as if trying to shield the object from view. "It's okay," Mira said, instinctively using the same soothing tone she used with nervous animals. "I won't take it. I just want to see." The dragon watched her intently as she approached. Now that she was closer, Mira could see that the chains weren't just restraining the dragon. They were connected to the glowing sphere through a complex mechanism. Each pulse of light corresponded with a tightening of the chains, and she noticed with growing horror that the dragon flinched with each pulse. The sphere wasn't just near the dragon, it was torturing it. When Mira reached the edge of the stone platform, she could finally read some of the markings on the sphere. Though written in a language she'd never seen before, somehow she understood their meaning. Sacrifice to contain the Ancient One. Blood pays for blood. With dawning comprehension, Mira realized the sphere was a prison of its own kind, holding something inside, something that fed on the dragon's life force through those cruel chains. The dragon wasn't guarding the sphere willingly. It had been condemned to a slow death to keep whatever was inside contained. Tears welled in Mira's eyes. "How long have you been down here?" she asked, not expecting an answer. To her shock, the dragon's voice entered her mind, ancient and weary. "Since the stars were young." Mira gasped, nearly dropping her flashlight. "You can talk. Not as humans do. But you hear me because you listen. Few of your kind have bothered in many centuries. What's in there?" Mira pointed to the sphere. "Why are you chained to it?" The dragon's mental voice grew heavy with sorrow. "Something that would devour your world if freed. A hunger from beyond the veil. My kind fought it when it first came through the void between worlds. We could not destroy it, only contain it. So they chained you to it. That's horrible." "I volunteered," the dragon corrected. "Our magic, our life force, can hold the barrier. But I did not know then how long I would endure." Mira touched one of the chains gingerly. It was ice cold despite the dragon's body heat. "There has to be another way. You're dying." "Yes, and when I die, the barrier fails, unless another takes my place." The implication sent a chill through Mira that had nothing to do with the cold water. She took an involuntary step back. "You want me to?" "No, child." The dragon's mental voice softened. "I would not wish this fate on any being. I merely explain why I must remain." Mira examined the locking mechanism where the chains connected to the sphere. "What if we could break the connection, free you without releasing whatever's inside?" "Many have tried. The binding is beyond mortal tools." "Maybe not modern tools," Mira said, her mind racing. "How long since anyone's tried?" "The last human to find this place came with a sword and shield. He did not leave." "That's a really long time ago." Mira checked her phone. No signal, of course, but the time showed she'd been gone nearly 2 hours. Her parents would be worried. "I have to go, but I'm coming back. I promise." The dragon's eyes studied her, seeming to look straight into her soul. "Why would you help me?" Mira thought about it, water dripping from her clothes as she stood before this ancient, suffering being. "Because it's wrong. No one should have to suffer forever, especially not to fix someone else's mistake. If you free me, and the hunger escapes, then we'll find another solution. Together." Mira reached out hesitantly, then placed her small hand on the dragon's massive snout. Its scales were warm and smooth beneath her palm. "What's your name?" "Names have power, child, but you may call me Azuran." "I'm Mira, and I'm coming back tomorrow, Azuran, with help." As she made her way back through the flooded tunnel, Mira's mind whirled with possibilities. She didn't know how to free a dragon from magical chains, but she knew someone who might have ideas. Her grandmother, whose house was filled with ancient books, and who told stories of old magic that had long left the world. What Mira didn't realize was that with every pulse of the sphere, the entity inside was becoming aware of her presence, her warmth, her life. And it was hungry after centuries of feeding only on a dragon's fading strength. In the darkness behind her, the sphere's glow intensified, and the dragon named Azuran closed its eyes in pain as the chains tightened once more. Part 2. The Rescue. Mira returned to the quarry tunnel the next afternoon with a backpack much heavier than before. Her grandmother had listened to her story with surprising acceptance, asking questions about the sphere and the chains rather than dismissing the tale as fantasy. While she hadn't explicitly believed in dragons, she'd given Mira several items: a small leather pouch of herbs and crystals, a vial of silvery liquid that seemed to move of its own accord, and a book with brittle yellow pages covered in diagrams. "If what you sought is real," her grandmother had said, "then these might help. They were passed down through our family for generations, though I never understood their purpose. Until now, perhaps." Now, wading through the cold water toward Azuran, Mira wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. What if she couldn't help? What if she made things worse? The dragon lifted its head as she approached, amber eyes gleaming in the darkness. You returned. I promised I would. Mira climbed onto the stone platform, setting down her backpack. How are you feeling? The hunger grows stronger. Its senses change. Mira glanced at the sphere, which pulsed more rapidly than before. The blue glow occasionally shot through with veins of angry red. Can it hear us? It has no ears, but it feels intention. Be careful what you wish for near it. Mira nodded, unpacking her grandmother's gifts. I brought some things that might help. My grandmother thinks her family may have been involved in whatever this is, a long time ago. Azuran's eyes widened. The binding spell was crafted by 7 families. If you carry their blood, you may indeed help, or cause catastrophe. Great, no pressure. Mira opened the book, finding a page with diagrams that matched the chain's connection points. Look, these markings are the same. The Codex of Binding. Azuran's mental voice held awe. We believed all copies were destroyed centuries ago. Mira studied the diagrams, comparing them to the actual mechanisms before her. It says here that the chains draw power from both the captive and the captive's warden. That's you. Yes, my life force maintains the barrier between your world and the hunger. As I weaken, so does the barrier. But there's something else. Mira traced the faded text with her finger. It mentions a key of 3 parts: blood, word, and will. She looked up at Azuran. Blood I understand, and will is probably intention, but what word? The true name of what is contained, a name never spoken aloud since the binding. Mira frowned. How am I supposed to know that? You cannot, but I can share it with you, though the speaking of it will cause me great pain. There has to be another way, Mira insisted, unwilling to cause the dragon more suffering. Azuran's gaze softened. Child, I have endured centuries of pain. A moment more matters little if it brings freedom. Reluctantly, Mira nodded. The book says I need to place the potion on the main binding lock while speaking the name and offering a drop of blood freely given. Then the chain should release without breaking the containment of whatever's inside. If your blood carries the memory of the binding families, it may work. And if it doesn't? Azuran didn't answer, but the implication was clear. Failure could release the hunger. With trembling hands, Mira uncorked the vial of silvery liquid and approached the main lock where the chains converged at the sphere. She placed her palm on the cold metal and felt an immediate connection, a recognition that traveled up her arm like electricity. It knows me, she whispered. Your bloodline remembers its creation. Mira took a deep breath. I'm ready for the name. Azuran closed its eyes, and suddenly Mira's mind, filled with a word so complex and alien it seemed to fold in on itself, a sound that wasn't a sound but a concept that human vocal cords could never produce. She understood it perfectly in that moment, though she knew she would never be able to recall it afterward. Mira poured the silvery liquid onto the lock, watching as it flowed into the crevices of its own accord, seeking out pathways invisible to her eyes. Then she pricked her finger with a small knife from her backpack, letting a drop of blood fall onto the center of the lock. With blood freely given, she recited from the book, with the true name known, with will unbending, I command the binding to release its warden but maintain its ward. She spoke the alien name in her mind, pushing it through the connection she felt with the lock. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the sphere's pulsing light shifted from blue to blinding white, and the chains began to vibrate, producing a high-pitched keening that made Mira cover her ears. Azuran roared in pain as the chains glowed white-hot against its scales. No, Mira cried, certain she'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then, one by one, the locks snapped open. The chains fell away from Azuran's body, splashing into the water below, while somehow remaining connected to the sphere, which now hovered unsupported above its pedestal. Azuran stood to its full height for the first time in centuries, stretching wings that nearly spanned the width of the cavern. The wounds where the chains had been began to heal before Mira's eyes, scales regenerating over raw flesh. "You have done what none believed possible." Azuren's voice in her mind was stronger now, vibrant with newfound freedom. "The hunger remains contained, but I am no longer its lifeline." Mira stared at the sphere, which continued to pulse with white light, the chains now forming a cage around it rather than extending to the dragon. What happens to it now? The binding has reshaped itself. It draws energy from the earth beneath us rather than from a living sacrifice. A more sustainable solution, though one beyond the magic users of old. "So it's safe, really safe." "Safe enough," Azuren conceded, "though it should be moved to a more secure location, away from curious humans." Mira nodded, relief washing over her. She hadn't doomed the world, and she'd freed an innocent being from endless torment. That counted as a successful summer adventure by any standard. Then a new voice spoke, neither hers nor Azuren's, but a whisper that seemed to come from the sphere itself. "Free. Me too." Mira jumped back, stumbling on the wet stone. "It can talk." Azuren positioned itself between Mira and the sphere. "It tries to deceive. Do not listen. She has the blood. She could free us both." "Us?" Mira asked, despite herself. "There is no us," Azuren insisted. "The hunger was once many beings who fused into one consciousness through their endless consumption of worlds. It seeks to add your world to those it has already devoured." The sphere pulsed angrily, the chains around it rattling. "Lies. I am trapped, like you were. Help me." Mira felt a pull toward the sphere, an almost irresistible urge to touch it, to free whatever was inside. She took an involuntary step forward before Azuren's tail blocked her path. "Its influence grows stronger without my life force to suppress it," Azuren warned. "We must leave this place." Mira blinked, the strange compulsion fading. "Can we? I mean, can you leave after being here so long?" "I stayed to prevent its escape. Now the binding is secured differently. I am free to go, and so are you, unless you wish to remain and listen to its lies." The sphere pulsed faster, its light turning red. "She is mine. I called her here." Mira's blood ran cold as she realized the implication. "I didn't just happen to find this place, did I? The hunger has been reaching out, testing its limits," Azuren explained. "It may have sensed your bloodline and drawn you here, hoping you would free it completely." "Then we definitely should leave." Mira packed up her things quickly, but paused. "What about the sphere? If someone else finds this place, I will return with others of my kind. We will move it somewhere no human will ever stumble upon it again." The sphere's glow intensified, and the cavern began to shake, small stones falling from the ceiling into the water below. The voice from the sphere rose to a shriek that existed only in their minds. "You cannot leave here. We need to go. Now." Mira slung her backpack over her shoulder as larger rocks began to fall. Azuren lowered its massive body. "Climb onto my back, child. The tunnels will soon collapse." Without hesitation, Mira scrambled onto the dragon's back, holding tight to the ridge of scales along its spine. With powerful legs, Azuren launched them both into the air, wings extending to their full magnificent span in the cavern. "Close your eyes," Azuren instructed. "The way out may be unconventional." Mira squeezed her eyes shut just as Azuren released a stream of blue-white flame at the cavern ceiling. Heat washed over her face as the dragon propelled them upward through the newly created opening, bypassing the flooded tunnels entirely. They burst into the open air above the quarry, sunlight momentarily blinding after the darkness below. Behind them, the ground shuddered and then collapsed inward, the tunnel system giving way with a roar that echoed across the valley. Azuren circled higher, and Mira finally opened her eyes to the breathtaking view of her hometown spread out below, tiny houses and roads making it look like a model village. The wind rushed past her face, carrying away the last of the sphere's influence. "Where will you go?" she asked, raising her voice against the wind. First, to ensure the hunger is truly secured beneath the collapse. Then, to find others of my kind who still hide in the wild places of your world. It has been too long since I flew under open skies. Azuren descended toward a clearing in the forest near the quarry, well away from any hiking trails or roads. As Mira slid from the dragon's back onto solid ground, her legs wobbled beneath her. "Will I ever see you again?" she asked, suddenly reluctant to part ways. Azuren lowered its massive head to her level, amber eyes studying her face. "Your blood carries ancient magic, Mira. I suspect our paths will cross again." The dragon raised its head toward the sky, wings unfurling. "Until then, remember that some chains are not meant to be broken, but others should never have been forged. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference." With that, Azuren launched skyward in a powerful surge of muscle and wing, quickly becoming a distant shape against the clouds. Mira watched until the dragon vanished completely, then turned toward home, her heart lighter than it had been in years. In her backpack, unnoticed, the ancient book's pages began to fill with new words. Her words, her story, writing itself into the magical history her grandmother had passed down. The tale of a girl who found a chained dragon in a flooded tunnel, and the choice she made that saved them both. And deep beneath the collapsed quarry, in darkness absolute, a sphere pulsed once, twice, and then settled into dormancy, waiting for the next curious soul to wander too close to its prison. But that would be another story, for another day.